Sometimes you just gotta hit the button, right? And
Yep.
get started.
Yep.
Hey,
What's up, everybody?
so we're making this video because we just got engaged last weekend.
We did.
Yeah. And just kind of wanted to share a little bit about that, my process within it, because I literally thought this was impossible 4 years ago. And I just couldn't see it happening at all. And I guess we could share, let's start with what actually happened.
Like how we met?
No.
Or...
Like in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay.
Like, because we already knew that we were gonna get
Married.
yeah. But so we'd already talked about that, and kind of like when we first started our relationship, that was kind of implied within our agreement for our relationship. It's like we were looking at, okay, well, if we do this for real, then we're gonna go all the way with it, and also including like how we're gonna raise our children, that kind of stuff. That was just a talk that we had up front, because we were serious about it. We weren't trying to like come into it being like
wasting time.
Right.
Like there was just no time to waste. It was like we were both at a point in our lives that it was like, okay, like if this is gonna work, then we're gonna know, and then we're gonna move forward as necessary. And then if it doesn't work out, then great. Now we know, and we'll move on with our lives.
Right. So we had all those agreements already set in place. So the engagement itself wasn't actually a surprise, but the actual proposal was, well...
I was surprised.
Yeah.
Because I asked to be surprised.
You wanted to be surprised. I was like, okay, we're engaged now. You're like, no, surprise me. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not good with surprises. But were you surprised?
Yeah. I mean, we have a video of it, and I watched that video like a million times, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was surprised. I had no idea what was coming, especially in that moment. So it was fun. And it was cool because like we were in Minneapolis for another friend's wedding, Mitchell Snyder and Jess, that just got married. So we were taking a little tour of the city, and we had the whole crew there, basically from Self-Perfected, Techno Tutor, the people that at least attended the wedding. So it was awesome just like having, close people that we already would have wanted to be around to be there to witness that event. So it was awesome.
Yeah, and it was also really cool to have those specific people there because they all supported both of us to get into this relationship in the first place. And I think that's like a good point here to kind of just talk about that. Like I was saying before, 4 years ago, I thought that getting into a relationship, at least a long-term relationship, with a woman was just going to be impossible. Just like I thought, like having a child with someone who I actually liked, and that working out, and us living together and all that, I really thought that was like, it's just not gonna be possible. And it's funny because I told you about I went to Argentina to visit with this chef who I never got to meet, but he had a Netflix special, and in part of that special they showed like this chef's relationship with his I don't know if it's his wife or girlfriend, or if it was the significant other, but it was the mother of his child, one of his children. And like the arrangement that they had was they didn't live together, and
but they had kids.
Yeah, and so the daughter would stay with the mother, and then he would come and visit for like a couple weeks, maybe like 2 weeks out of the month or something like that, and then he'd go off for another few weeks or whatever. And but they made it really like clear that they didn't live together, they didn't want to live together. And I just thought that was like really romantic, and like that was cool. I was like, yeah, that's
I get
what I
to live my life, you live yours.
Right. And it honestly wasn't until I started I got Techno Tutor and started looking at relationships just in general, and seeing my relationship to relationships, where I realized like, oh, I have a pretty messed up idea of what a relationship really is. And I started to change that idea, not just in like, oh, well, I feel differently about it now, but really just like going through and coming through how I came to these conclusions in the first place, and did it actually make sense? And then obviously using the tools like Technotutor and DIP to correct those things and change those things within myself. And then naturally, as sort of the result of that, then I was able to start having better relationships. My relationships did get better, and starting to see more clearly like, oh no, obviously it would make sense if I want to have kids, that I'm with the mother of my children, right? And like we're both providing the best, utmost environment that we possibly can, and we're both on the same page. And like it started to become really clear, and then through that, just becoming more certain within myself, more clear within myself, and finding somebody who is also on that same path. And it's so cool because I told this to Mitchell the other day, about how I think the first time I went to go visit with him and Jess in Minneapolis, they were like advertising for me within the Self Perfected group of like, hey, Drake's single, we're gonna help you find the perfect woman. And I was like, oh, thanks guys, you guys are so sweet, right? And they were like, oh, we're gonna turn Self Perfected into a matchmaking service, right? A premier matchmaking service. And just joking about that, but it just so happened that you did come through Self Perfected.
Yep.
Right? And what's really cool about that, what makes a lot of sense, is that the starting point of that group is the same principles that we share.
Yeah.
And so you coming through that group means, oh, you're already on board with these principles. And then it was just having conversations to see like, is that actually the case? And through our conversations, we found out like it actually is the case.
Yeah.
Right?
And it took some time to develop, obviously, like, from when I first joined the group. But yeah, like, when people ask us like how we met, it's funny to say like through a Facebook group, but it's like, this is not just any ordinary Facebook group, right? If you are a part of Self Perfected, you already know. And if you don't, then even more reason to check it out, because I know something that caught my attention with the group was just seeing how first of all, the level of conversation, and then also just like the types of relationship that were being developed in the group, of like people with high integrity, people that live by this thing, called principles, which I had no idea was even like a thing before, or even something I'd even considered. And then actually creating relationships and bonds that you could fully, like, I guess, trust, like, for life, because these people were either all in or you're out, basically. Like, we're not joking around here. Like, we have fun, like, without a doubt. It's not all necessarily serious, but it's like coming back to those common sense traditions of like what it means to actually be in a partnership relationship, what it means to have valuable friends that you can trust, what it means to have a valuable community that you can rely on to support you through challenging times or something, or people that help you make money and actually make that money with the best intention of like doing what's best. And so that's kind of, how I kind of was already on board, so to speak, with everything.
Yeah. And
like you were already kind of doing this process for a little while before that.
Yeah. That just reminded me, I wanted to speak about this thing called peer orientation, right? And the reason why I want to bring it up here in this context is because I was reading about basically how children these days will attach to other kids, and they will orient themselves and their lives around those other kids, right? As opposed to their parents. And so if you consider your parents are older, they have a little bit more experience, and assuming that those parents are going to do the best thing, they've got the best intentions, and assuming they're going to do the best thing, you want to learn from your parents rather than from someone who's your same age if you're 4 or 5 years old, because that 4 or 5 year old does not have the experience. They don't know what life is about. They don't see all those things, right? And then the other thing is, because kids are growing up attaching themselves and orienting themselves around their peers who may be toddlers or 6 years old, whatever, then they associate their feelings and their understanding of the world around whatever their peers are doing. And so it becomes very superficial. Their relationships become very superficial. They don't allow themselves to be very vulnerable, because kids at that age are not very kind, right? Generally speaking. And so because they're not being vulnerable and their relationships are superficial, then it really all just becomes about the feeling in that moment, right? And here's the crux of what I'm getting at. We've had a few generations of this, and where that's brought us as a society is now adults who grew up in this way are now feeling like they get into relationships just based on the feelings and emotions. It's very superficial. They're not very vulnerable with each other. They're not emotionally available, all those kinds of things, right? And they've lost sight of what the whole point of getting into a relationship in the first place is. Instead of doing it just for a feeling, just to satisfy a feeling, we're doing it to support each other. We're doing it because we see that, hey, this actually, like us coming together, actually supports us both more to grow, both more to actually have an impact in this world.
Supports our purpose.
Yeah. What's that African proverb?
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you're going to go far, go together.
Exactly. And we want to go far. We want to go far. And actually, us working together supports us to go with more speed too.
Yeah.
Right? Because, look at how fast we're moving now. Right?
Yeah.
But we're on the same page. And we started out really being very clear about, okay, what is it that we're doing? And what is the point of this relationship in the first place?
Yeah, our individual purposes, and then also like the purpose of like getting together in a relationship, right? And then where do we see ourselves in the future, right? And I think it's clear to say that both of us had sort of like the same vision for like what we wanted, but it was just kind of like, okay, who's going to fulfill the role of like being that partner though? Because I always knew I wanted to be in a relationship and have a family, and so did you. It just kind of was really distorted for a while.
Yeah,
how that was going to happen.
It was hard to imagine because of the way that I was brought up. I didn't have an example of, I was brought up in a single mother home. I didn't have an example of seeing a relationship, a working relationship,
right.
Every day and things like that. And on top of that, it just seemed like I had trouble getting along with women, and so it just seemed so far removed that I was just like, oh, it's impossible,
Right.
And I just started thinking of, that example that I gave, and that appealed to me because that seemed possible. It was still like kind of in the direction of what I wanted.
Right, the chef example?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. Kind of in the direction of what I wanted. I still want a family. I still, want to be there for my child. But I just couldn't see or wrap my mind around, like,
the relationship with your partner.
The relationship with my partner, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, yeah. But I did want a family, just like you. And so we both were, in our individual purposes, aligned in that. But also both aligned with doing what's best for all.
Yeah.
And then coming together in our relationship, aligning in doing what's best for all together.
Yeah. And
supporting each other to be our actual best, not just making us feel good.
Right, exactly. And that's a really clear distinction to make. Like, not to say that you don't have feelings and emotions, or that's not present in your relationship, so to speak. It's more about like the starting point isn't sustainable in a relationship when you just base it off of this person makes me feel good. Because as most of us have, you know, even just with like normal friendship relationships or parent relationships, it's like there are moments when another person does not make you feel good, right? But those are the moments where it's like you need to, I guess, like more assess like why you're having these sort of reactions with the other person, and what are you going to do to communicate effectively to then resolve the issue. But most people, when it comes to specifically romantic relationships, is that you find all the excuses of why that person is like bad or not living up to your expectations, and it's just full on blame to the other person that they're not, you know, living up to what you want or need. And that's why most relationships fail, and that's why most people are even afraid of getting into relationships, because they're of the fear of loss and getting hurt by the other person. So that's why it's what we want to, I guess, share and be clear on is like the starting point of our relationship was this agreement of why we're together. What are we gonna like? How are we gonna hold each other accountable to what we want to, I guess, like live up to in our relationship?
Yeah.
And just continuously, like, how can we push each other to grow and to expand and to ultimately get to like where we want to go in our lives, right? And it's not just this like superficial thing like, oh, like one day. It's like no, like we're serious about creating a world that's best for all, and creating real relationships within ourselves, with the children that we're going to have, with our community, and then also, you know, just being self-honest and about like what that actually is going to look like moving forward. So yeah, like,
yeah, I think let's tell them where we're going and then wrap it up, right? And by that I mean like we're gonna become very wealthy, and we're gonna help a lot of people along the way. Like that's gonna be the measure of how many people we're helping is our wealth is what's gonna reflect that, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we keep saying, you know, the starting point of our relationship. Well, the starting point is the end point, right? And what we're creating is a world where people actually care about each other, a world that is best for all, a world where we're giving as we want to receive in reality, not just like, you know, if you're homeless, you don't just want to receive like a couple bucks. That's not what you want. You want to live a comfortable life. You want a place. You want like to feel safe. You want to feel like you can actually be a part of society, and that's what we want to create. We want to create a world where there's no more child slavery, no more child abuse, no more child poverty, right? And you know, that's a big undertaking for sure, and it will take a huge community to do that, and that's what we're building in the process. We're building this huge community of people that actually have these same principles of doing what is actually best, right? Of actually caring for one another. And because our starting point is the end point, the beauty of that, what we're seeing is we get to live it as we create it, right? And so just while we were over this last weekend for Mitch and Jess's wedding, we got to see how we are creating that community and how far this community has come so far. And this community so far is amazing. Like, we actually care about one another. We have fun. It's a genuine relationship. Other people who are, you know, maybe just seeing that for the first time can also share with us like, oh wow, you guys really are genuine. You really are having a good time. Like, you are doing something, and we actually care in it, and it's a lot of fun, and it's just a really beautiful process that we get to be a part of and keep growing. And we're looking forward so much to growing that here where we are locally.
Yeah, building systems for sure. Like, because that's what I think has become really clear, especially this past weekend at the wedding. It's like we're building like a community, but through creating a system to actually help people change and get rid of all their bullshit of like what they think, you know, what they've been told about relationships or having a family or all sorts of things are kind of like just like, if you're looking at society right now and the way that it's going, this progressive movement, it's like it's going away from all these like common sense traditional values, but and definitely not in the best way that really supports people to become effective. A lot of people suffer, you know, or like are distraught with so many mental health disorders, or like just really, it's really challenging now to find people that are emotionally stable, or even like I mean, you know, maybe there is more opportunity for financial opportunity and stability, but most people, it comes back to that emotional instability. And where it's really clear that what we're doing with TechnoTutor, with Self Perfected, is like creating this system of how you can physically change that, so then we're not passing on that bullshit to our children, which is, you know, as adults now, it's like we know because what that's like, because we suffered the consequences of, even though our parents were doing the best that they could, it wasn't actually the most effective and supportive environment to actually live up to be your utmost potential.
Right.
And that's really, really, really like what's awesome about this group is like, no, we're serious about actually creating a world that's best, and that's by making us as best as possible, and in whatever capacity that is, whether it's being a mother, a father, a businessman, you know, being a friend, being whatever it is, right? And yeah, like, and I think I just want to make that clear. It's like what we do, it fucking works. Like, I've only been a part of this community for not even a year, and like my life has changed more in the best way possible in the last 9 months over versus like the last 3 years where I've been wasting so much fucking time. So and I'm so glad for that, and to be like challenged of like why I've been avoiding certain things. Like even just getting into this relationship for me, like I didn't realize like how much, even though I knew what I wanted out of my life in terms of like being a mother, having a family, having a business that I can support my partner in, or something, or that something that we could build together, it's like I was avoiding the very decisions that was getting me to that point. And through the help and support of this group, like now I've got this amazing relationship with Drake, and yeah, we're just so excited to just keep moving forward and growing and expanding. Like, it's awesome.
Honestly, like I did not know how much I was going to change, how much I was going to grow, how much I was going to challenge myself and question my thoughts of where they come from, and if they're valid or not. But in the process of doing that, I got to let go of all the shitty thoughts that I had of like doubting myself and anxiety and all of that. And I'm happier than I've ever been. Like I did not know I could be this happy, and just doing something so simple, you know? And so like we want to grow this. Like that's what we're here to do. We're here to grow this. We're here to give this to everyone who well, everyone wants it, right? But everyone who's willing to actually take the step toward it, right? And so if that sounds like any little bit of something that you might be interested in, having a community, having people around you that care about you, being able to care for yourself in a way where you're not self-doubting, where you're not like always anxious or like just crowded out by your own depressing thoughts. You know, if you want to shift from that and be around other people who are doing the same, and grow that and be a part of that, and be a part of ending child abuse, then hey, join us, because that's what we're here to do. So, I mean, send me or Christine a message privately, or you know, even just join into the Self Perfected Facebook group and become a part of what we're doing, because it's going to take more than just me and her, you know, and there are more than just me and her doing this, but it's going to take as many of us as possible, right?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Awesome.
All right.
See ya.
See you guys.